it is very surprising to see how many people are just willing to help out just to help out. But just the sheer experience of doing it and then building connections with people so that in the future you can work with them and actually get them paid. It's surprising the power of just doing something can get other people on board.
There's this world that we're always trying to build each other up, but you can't do that if no one's talking to you or if you're not talking to anyone. And this is the hardest truth. You're never going to get to any of our levels if you're doing this solo.
Yep.
You just get fried so fast, you burn out, and then you're done. Welcome back to the Unfold Podcast. Today we have a fun one. We're here joined by Hwanjoe and myself, Jason. We're actually going to be breaking down the pre-production process of a project Hwanjoe is shooting on Monday. So that's 4 days from now. And this series is going to cover us from the pre-production to production as well as post-production. And we want to break down all the myths, the issues and problems that lead up to a project so you guys know exactly how to deal with this stuff in the future. And so by the end of this, we're going to talk about everything pre-production, casting and crew, and how ideations actually come together. And so if you've ever had questions about this, we're going to be going deep diving into that. So let's dive right into it. So tell me about this project that you're working on. Where did it start? Who is it about? Give me the whole scope.
Okay. So I have some really great friends over at this barbershop called Barberia Uno in Toronto. Free advertisement.
Big shout out.
I'm doubling the free advertisement because I'm doing a free ad for them too.
Money.
But pretty much this is a spec project for them. It's not like what you were speaking of earlier when you were first starting out as well, doing these barbershop videos. I've done plenty of recaps.
What's wrong with my barbershop
Nothing
videos?
at all. Nothing at all. But I've done plenty of recaps in my time. I've done plenty of just event shooting as well. So I really wanted to take it a little step further and actually do a proper commercial spec spot like you're always talking about. And Charlie, the DP for this project, also goes there as well. So we sat down and we just drafted up a big master list of ideas that we can do. Really simple stuff, nothing like too over the top, just super simple execution, put all of the practices we've learned into play and just see what we can do. And as we were narrowing them down, Charlie had this great idea for a spec ad. And it all came from this time he actually went to the barbershop and he got a haircut so good that he just left his hat there. That didn't actually happen. But he was like, I don't need this hat that I wore here anymore. And that was the whole concept. Really simple stuff, right? He brought that idea to me and we sat down and we thought about it for a while. I kind of fleshed it out in my head. And I was like, okay, these guys who work at this barbershop, super fun guys, super talented guys, can really get like a good performance out of them. Like, how can we really push this like skit forward? And so yeah, that's like the whole concept of this pieces.
Love it. There's a lot of good takeaway moments as I'm listening to this as well. And I think they're learning lessons for a lot of people. So first of all, you're gonna get a lot of projects like this where the easiest entry point is just someone that you know, or at least someone you've worked with in the past in a different capacity. And so you've already broken down all the barriers of trying to find someone new. I think a lot of people struggle on how do I even get clients, especially in the spec world. The great thing here is that you have this relationship. You're just elevating it now. And because they trust you and he already has a relationship with each other, like now you could just go in there and ask and pitch this idea versus a cold pitch to someone that you have no idea for. And plus you actually have a relationship with the space, with the ideas, and stuff like this naturally flows better because like you said, you've all experienced this. It's a relatable moment. It's a good idea too, because I've seen it and we'll dive more into that later. But this is where the best ideas typically come from when you have nothing, especially when we don't have budget, right? Like you want to start at the best places. Yeah. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. For context, this is a pure speculative $0 ad. And like you were saying, I think it's great because I always find that when you try and do something that you're not familiar with, you're going to end up regurgitating an idea or something that you've seen in the past, which there's nothing wrong with. But I found that this story was so strong and connected to me so much because I've been getting haircuts from this place. Charlie literally wore a hat there and then felt the need to not wear it anymore. These are all just things that we've genuinely experienced. Yeah. So it's a lot easier for us to tell a story about this and create something that's better than if we're just trying to make something up about a fake experience that we assumed.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So you were doing other types of projects before. What did that look like? Yeah. Not even specifically for him, but in general, your career-wise.
Yeah. So I have a lot of experience within the running community in Toronto. It's been very big over the last year or two, right? And those would always be, I get sent like an event brief, like not even like a project brief.
Yeah.
Like I get like the blast
same
email
brief that
forward.
everybody-
It's
yeah,
like, what is up, runners? We're meeting up at this
Yeah.
spot.
Like, oh,
And
that's when I should show up.
yeah, I show up there, and I get like a brief view of like what the track looks like. I'm like, okay, they're gonna be running around this place, or it'll be like a trail or something like that. So I'm like, okay, they're gonna be running here.
Yeah.
And I have like a vague idea of like, okay, I could do like maybe a couple cool shots here and there and stuff like that. Or even for my barber friend, it would be, he had like a workshop night where they would be like showing how to do this shaving technique or how to do layers. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually really cool. But
I've done it
invite-
before too.
Yeah,
You
they-
become a barber through osmosis.
yeah, you're like, I'm learning how to cut my own hair.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would invite a bunch of people, a bunch of barbers from the area, and just do like a cool workshop night. So me and Charlie would
Just
show up.
recap or like,
Yeah,
yeah. You
take
can't really
pictures.
control it or anything like that.
Yeah, you're just documenting everything and then trying to cut something up at the end of it.
Yeah. So yeah. So what is the intention with this? Like why choose this path to go into commercial?
So I think originally, this is actually comes from a conversation that we had with them previously before this idea even came into play. They just really want to up their social media game, which is fantastic for anyone like me and everyone in the creative industry. Everyone needs a video. It doesn't matter how big it is, how small it is. Everyone just wants to put some reels out, right? So they're like, yeah, if you have any ideas at all, just let us know. And we're like, okay, this is a really simple idea. I think it aligns well with like the voice and the tone of this barbershop.
Yeah.
It captures their identity well. So let's just run with that.
Yeah. There's something interesting here too to talk about. You said everyone needs a video.
Mm-hmm.
And I think depending on where you're at in your career, you end up talking a lot about this. So there's the conversations of, I want to do more great videos, but you care less about like the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
In this case, I think you guys have put a lot of thought into this and like not necessarily where you're planning to market this, because that's not necessarily your job as the production company or the people coming in to shoot this. Did you have to put that into perspective when you were creating this, or were you like, I just want to make something cool out of it? And it's totally cool to say, I just want to make something cool.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's definitely both. Even in this social media age where you want to make a nice, beautiful, horizontal video, you always have to frame for center frame and all that stuff, right? So as we were coming up with the ideas and shot listing, prevising, we had to keep that all in mind. Like, how are we going to make this look beautiful and the way we want it to with all these cool framings, but also how we're going to make it super adaptable into this 16:9 framing that you see, or 9:16. I don't really know.
Yeah.
The vertical social framing that everyone needs to do nowadays.
Yeah. Did you find it like difficult to put that into perspective or like think about that stuff? Does it ruin your flow to be like, I also got to do a 9:16?
I don't know. I feel like we have a bit of an advantage being raised in a social media age where so much of the content we consume is in 16:9 or 9:16 in the socials aspect. So we've just seen so many shots within that context now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even when I was starting, the very first projects I was doing, that framing was always in play. Sometimes the horizontal ratio would not even be like a factor. Like it would always just be like a reel.
Yeah.
So honestly, I have more experience shooting in that aspect than I do in the other aspect. So honestly, I would say it was more of a challenge to figure out how I can shoot this reel, the socials reel, but also make it look really good in the horizontal way, not the other way around.
So let's loop it back around.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hope this does for you?
So we've done a lot of projects so far. I shot a commercial with Zach. Me and Charlie shot this documentary that we talked about in a previous episode. Go check it out. We've done a lot of stuff so far, but Charlie and I haven't done a commercial spot specifically, and we haven't executed all the steps the way we wanted it to, the way we wanted to in the past, right?
Yeah.
So for this project being such a small actual production scope, super simple. It's like a half-day shoot. Crew, not that big. Budget, $0. It's what you have to work with. But we really want to see how something like this can turn out when we follow this entire pre-production step by step, like execute on those exactly the way we want to, go into production feeling super confident about my idea, but also the team I have around me and the shots that we have, and then going into post-production and seeing how strong can this edit truly be. We also want to like experiment with color and stuff. We've never really worked with a colorist before. It would always either be me or Charlie in DaVinci or even Premiere, God forbid. So we want to see like what this can do if we create like a really strong project, a really beautiful project that we're proud of, and see how far we can actually push it. And we're also taking from your playbook, bringing a BTS person on and documenting the whole thing to not only put out this piece as a standalone, but also seeing what it can do for us if this project is really good and it speaks for itself, and also having that BTS backing of, you know, being able to showcase ourselves, our personalities a little bit more, showing what our process was like. And yeah, just showcasing more of the production side of us as opposed to just the production itself.
Amazing. Yeah, we talk about this a lot in the cohorts that we do, Cinematic Portfolio Mastery, where in the beginning, you don't need to necessarily know exactly which like genre direction you're going for. Right now, the excitement comes from just doing and being able to create stuff on your own and going through the steps and processes. And that's kind of the great thing here. This is like a technical spec that's leaning into a commercial spec because, you know, in the beginning, you don't have these skills, but you guys kind of have like a nicer bridge in the middle, right? You actually understand, you've seen us go through productions, you've seen all the processes, that you guys can almost like skip steps forward to be like, yeah, we could work with a colorist, a sound person. We have all these connections now to really elevate and push it forward. And that's actually really exciting too, because now you're going to have a piece by the end of this, whether you love it or you don't love it, you're probably going to learn so many things from this. You guys did a proper previs, which we'll get to. And at the end, whether you love it and you want to continue doing this, it's cool because now you've been able to test it and know if you like the process. Oh, it's tight. It was like a half day. Like realistically, it might be a full day, and that's going to sneak up on you very quickly, right? And that's why we're actually talking about this before he even shoots this, because we want to see the process, what's going on beforehand, so then we can come back and do like a postmortem afterwards to be like, did it match up to exactly your expectations? How did things fall apart? You know, did the pre-production fix all the problems, or were there things that you can kind of like continue stacking onto in the future? So this is actually a really great place to talk about. So let's jump right into the pre-production. Do you feel like you've covered everything in terms of the creative ideation phase of this?
Yeah, it's very interesting because the one step that we did skip was actually the treatment. Right.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying before, me and Charlie just came up with this idea, and it was never supposed to be of a big production scale. Not saying that it is right now, but we were like, we're just going to show this. Like, it's not going to be helpful if we show a treatment to this client right now, because we don't really need to sell it. We just kind of need to show them what the final end product is going to feel like and look like. So we were just like, we know what we want. We know how this whole thing is going to feel like. So let's just go shoot a previs so that we can send that to them, and they can figure out if they want this video on their page or not. So,
which is a great move. Because in most cases, when people hear director's treatments, it takes a lot of time. It's super intensive in terms of what you're getting out of it. And if it's not for the right client, they don't really care. And so there's two paths here. And like, this is the path that Hwanjoe took, which is do the previs to show a client, because if they're not a quote unquote like agency or big client that expects that, it's easier to just show someone exactly what you want, and you can get reactions live from that. Because I'm sure that's kind of what the whole approach was here.
Yeah. And I've gotten so many, another reason why I skipped the treatment process. I've done so many treatments in the last couple months that I've gotten turned down. I'm like so proud of these treatments. I spent so much time making them, and then they just get like ghosted. I'm like, I'm so sick of this. So yeah, the treatment, that process went super, super well, because not only did we fully flesh out what we wanted this whole thing to look like, we made like a rough shot list beforehand. I was just like I always say, like, I have the full previs in my mind. But this time we wrote it down. And then we actually shot it so that me and Charlie both know what's going on in there. And then we went and shot the previs. It went super well. Originally, I thought it was going to be a 30-second spot. I always have this problem. I always think it's going to be super shorter than it ends up being. I thought it was going to be a 30-second spot. It turned out to be perfect, like on the minute. So we're like, we'll just
Keep
run
it.
with that.
Yeah.
And we shot it. It went super well. In the edit, it just flowed perfectly. And we created this previs. We edited it together, and we sent it over to the client. They loved it. I showed it to everyone at Tenfold, all of you guys,
Yeah,
all my
great.
friends, and they're like, "This is fantastic. We have no notes." And hearing that, I was like, "Oh, we might be onto something that might be a little bit bigger than just like a socials reel. Like we could
push this,
make this a little bit better."
Hey everybody, we hope you're enjoying this conversation as much as we are. If you're an aspiring cinematographer or already an experienced cinematographer looking to understand our pre-production process, this is the actual 9-step framework that we've created after years of making costly mistakes and simple things that ruined our productions. And so now we've actually done a step-by-step guide in teaching you how to go from A to Z on every production.
This is actually the exact step-by-step process that I've been following to execute on this production as well.
So I want to invite you to join the waitlist today for the pre-production playbook. The link is in the description below. So let's get back to it. So let's actually hold there for a second. What did you used to do, and what did this allow you to feel? Right? Like, did it give you much more confidence in terms of, before you just used to keep it all in here and then we would have to figure it out on set? Like, why previs and how has it changed kind of your approach with everything?
I think from all the productions that I've worked on so far, whether it be the recap videos or actually bigger crew productions and stuff like that for like music videos or whatever, usually the productions went pretty smoothly. There would be like a bump here and there where me and Charlie would have a disagreement over how we want the shot, what shots we want. And those are always annoying. You don't really want to run into that. But the biggest problem that I always got, no matter what, no matter how smoothly the production went, is that in the edit, it would take forever.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a plan going into the edit, and I didn't have a plan of what it's actually going to look like. So either I'm missing shots, so I need to come up with something on the fly in the edit room. I can't do pickups. The event already happened.
Yeah. Like, you don't know where to start. You don't know where it ends.
Exactly.
All these little things.
When you don't have a plan for the edit, that's when you just really sit there. And there's no one really holding you accountable. You're not on set. You don't have the pressure of people being like, we only have 2 hours left with these people or this location. We have to like get this done. You're just sitting there with the hard drive, and it's your choice whether or not you decide to edit or not.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
So actually doing this previs, it made me realize what shots we actually need and what we don't.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have to waste time when it comes to the actual shoot date. And it made me realize the flow of it and the pacing and what we need from the actual performances with the actors.
Yeah.
Because as a director in the commercial space, it's so easy to get caught up in the big ideas of what you want this whole thing to look like.
Yeah.
But I think
feel is everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the actor isn't giving the right performance, if they don't deliver the line well, even if it's just like a facial expression, and if you don't know how to communicate that with your actors, then you're just screwed.
Yeah. I think this is actually one of the, and I like to pause here because previs can make or break anyone's project, and at any scale really, because it is the biggest unknown, not knowing what you're shooting, timing wise, all these little details, especially because the genre of what you guys are doing is more comedy. You realize that pacing and timing of these cuts are going to be key. And even double clicking down further on that, you were mentioning like how the pacing goes. One of the biggest things that as a director that a lot of people misstep on or don't realize is when you're doing these takes, there's actually a length. Like, even though that shot is 6 seconds, you need to know exactly when they're going to enter the shot, when they're going to exit it. And even though you've pre-visited out already too, there's that extra step now to do enough variation within timing, because you don't want to get to the edit and post again and realize this shot's too fast.
Yeah.
Or
I'm missing like a couple frames.
Yeah, a couple frames. And this is the difference of, you could just keep holding your shot longer, but that's not what we're talking about. You're talking about the performance within that timing that matters so much, because either it lingers long or it doesn't sit exactly. And all these little details you were saying is like, these are the main things you want to do during your previs. And we always say, like, I'm sure you did a similar thing for, I'm not sure if you guys did it for Devo as well, but this is kind of the moments where you need to see it in an actual Premiere file. And people think, I shot it, that's enough. And then you don't see how it actually cuts or if things cut together, because right away you'll realize why did we jump the 180 there? Like, why is he walking out this direction and then the continuity is messed up? All these little things give you so much clarity and confidence going into a shoot. And especially when you're able to have that conversation transparently across the whole crew, suddenly everyone's on the same page together.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. I think everything you've done is really solid on that point too as well.
Yeah.
So after your previs, kind of what was the next step for you guys?
After the previs, me and Charlie really nailed down the shot list. I think that's super important, because it just keeps you organized, right? It keeps you organized on set. And we're shooting on Easter Monday next week. That's a holiday. So
Yeah.
it's one thing asking people to do a spec job. It's another thing asking people to work on a holiday. So
But this is the spec life.
yeah, that's a spec life, but also you want to be respectful of people's times.
Yeah.
So we want to stay super organized, and doing the shot list, it just helps you know it feeds into the next step, but it helps you know exactly what you need, like what focal lengths you should be on, and even just really nailing down the vision, because previs is one thing, you can't do everything in it. You'll know how the edit is supposed to look, but you don't really know exactly what the whole shot is going to look like. Shot listing is a great place to really nail down the references. Me and Charlie would go on Frameset or like YouTube, Instagram, just pull a bunch of references. Charlie came up with this great shot of just this overhead angle over the door that we're going to try out. And then once the shot list is done, you have an entire list of what setups you need and what focal lengths you have. And I don't know if this is something that you do as well, or if it's like a common thing, but we'll just go through the entire shot list and figure out what makes the most sense for the shooting order. Because I am super ADHD when it comes to being on set, and I need to make sure everything makes sense, everything's in order, and we're not wasting time just standing around. So whichever way you organize it, I personally like to do it by, it makes the most sense, but the lighting setups and also the focal lengths. So just minimizing lens changes as much as possible, because those always eat into your time way more than you expect to.
Yeah. We always do this for every project. This is where an AD typically comes in as well. And once we have our shot list sorted out, like you guys do, we just go and walk through every single shot together. And they do a little bit differently, or depending on who you're working with. Typically, it's just always about the most streamlined setup. And sometimes the lens changes aren't the issue. Sometimes it is a matter of what the lighting looks like outside. Because if you're fighting daylight, then you need to actually reschedule things. Or can you do night for day, or whatever it is that makes the most sense. Because sometimes you have different problems to deal with. Because let's do the example right now of you're shooting this daylight, right? Like you're shooting outdoors, it's bright, it's airy. You're stuck to that only option there, right? But in certain commercial settings or whatever it is, you might not have those. You might have the leniencies based on whether it's the location is not available or timing is not available for a certain crew time, whatever, things shift on you. And so in a perfect case scenario like this, which is you have full access because it's Easter too, which is great. You don't have to like shut down the space specifically because he's, might be working that day. And so there's a big win there. And then secondly, we always look at it in the sense of, what's going to be the most streamlined? Is there certain crew and talent and all these things that have to come in? Especially when things get much more complex, you have to take much more into account here. But it's great that you guys have much more of a simple setup that's like maybe just a few actors, for example, right? And then how do I maximize our time? And it's like you're trying to keep this within that 5-hour window or like a half day or so. How do you guys plan on thinking about how many shots you're going to take? Like, because you have a full previs already, you guys know exactly how many shots you have. Or do you have an amount of times where are you okay going over time, or like how have you communicated this with the team as well?
Yeah. So one thing me and Charlie always try and do is have insurance time. When we were talking with the client, we were saying that we want 6 hours blocked off to do the whole production from load in to load out. But we don't really think we'll need 6 hours. You never know.
That's the greatest trap line of all time. I don't think I'm going to need this much time, because especially coming from, and this is just an off tangent, but when you come from a videography space, you think you can fly through shots much, much faster. But then knowing if you're a cinematographer or director or all these little things, all the details start to stack up on you much more. You're like, I got to move that little. That thing is annoying me right there.
I didn't like that take.
I
didn't like that take. I didn't like that take. You're at like take 5,
and
7,
then you're
6.
David Fincher or whatever, and suddenly you're on like take 50 or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And so now it's this is the good stuff about spec, because you're testing all of your limits right now to be like, how many times do I need to actually do this? Because then if you're not getting the right takes, it's more or less a reflection on yourself, not being able to get it out of the actor. And then, but this is the stuff that you think about beforehand, because I think we've had conversations about this before. It's very easy to fall into all the minute details because it feels a little bit safer.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like a checklist. So you can go through and be like, shot list done, call sheet done. Cool. That means you've been sitting in pre-production for so long, not thinking about the creative sometimes. Because you're like, I did in the previous. I got it all locked in. And then you get on set and you're like, oh, I have to like lead this entire thing and have the full capabilities to be like, I need the best take right here.
Yeah.
And based on the video, 60 seconds, like you have a good amount of space in there. And so it feels comfortable. Now it's just getting into the focus mode, because you're 2 days away. You're probably still thinking about, especially if you're talking to Charlie a lot, the cinematographer, you talk a lot about like, what gear are we getting? Do we have this stuff locked in? Right. I'm sure like, is that what's kind of going on right now?
Of course. That's the main conversation you'll have with the DP.
Yeah. Do we have everything sorted? And then you're also thinking about the crew now that you're bringing on. Like, who do we have? Which we'll get to as well. But it's always a nice reflection for directors to have a moment the day before, sit down with the shot list, and on the shot description, even beside that, we like to do this, is like a director's notes. And, I heard this from another, director out there, but it's easy to, there's like a common director mistake in the beginning too. It's like, hey, walk here and look left and then look right. And then you know what that looks like on camera? It's like the most robotic thing ever. And for the people that are listening, I literally look like a robot, just, super fake motions.
Yeah.
And it's because oftentimes you don't build enough of a world. And sometimes you don't build that world because you don't think about it yet. And how do you now become this director that paints this thing for actors? And oftentimes, I'm sure these are non-union actors. So they're just your friends. They're barbers that, maybe they're comfortable in camera, but you oftentimes work with people that absolutely have no, even if they're actors or models or model actors, they aren't completely comfortable in camera. They are literally like, what do I do with my hands? You need to show me exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of where you have to pull back on your brain a bit and be, how do we actually get that feeling I'm going for? Because oftentimes you do a previs, things work out really well, and then you have to pull it out of people on set to get the right kind of reactions and feelings. And sometimes it takes 4 or 5 takes to get that at place. And it's like not letting yourself get to that, not letting it break you. Because, there's there's like that pressure on set where everyone's like, well, Hwanjoe can't get it out of the person, right?
Yeah.
So that's what my always suggestion. It's a thing that I've learned over time too. When you do feel like you're a lot ahead, slow things down right before the shoot day and just sit there and be like, okay, how do what picture am I painting with these people, and how do I get them to feel like, they're ready for this?
Yeah. I think that's a very common thing. It's easy within the commercial world to forget what a director is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, you're supposed to think of these great ideas, create this huge world, but this big world comes down to the small details.
Yeah.
And if you're not thinking about every little thing, every little body language moment, delivery tone, it just gets lost. It doesn't make sense anymore. This world that you created is not real anymore.
Yeah. But this is also the cool thing, that you're moving away from things that you can't control, which, for a lot of filmmakers, that's the first step over the boundary of, hey, I'm moving into commercial now. I want to have control. And in the beginning, you sometimes, even if you haven't gone through these steps before, you think things should just exist for you because you're so used to going to an event and things just naturally existing, and you're trying to find the moment. Yeah. In the capacity of directing and like getting to commercial work, like you are creating the moment, which means that the pressure is now on you to do that. And it's a trained skill through repetition to get really comfortable with that. Yeah. Because some people are really good directors that end up being much more technical and knowing what shots they want in terms of the camera side of things. because they came from a camera side, but then it's really a humanistic like emotions game. How do you bring that out of people? So, we're kind of going off tangent here, but after you went through the whole process, you've explained it. Now talk about the crew side of things.
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, when we were originally doing this, we didn't really have the intention to make it a big production, right? It was me, Charlie. We learned from our documentary that we should probably have one or two extra hands helping us out. But as we realized the potential of this project, more so we realized it would be good enough that we think we can get people to hop on and help us out. And that will inevitably help us push the quality of it as well. So it feeds into each other, right? Yeah. The very first person that we got was a producer, because that is absolutely crucial. Yeah. And if you don't have that, you have to do a lot on your own.
What does a producer do for you?
So the producer is pretty much managing everything that is not creative, for me at least, as a director. So I'll tell them exactly what I need. I need this crew. I need the call sheets done. I need these props, all this stuff. It's their job to organize that, communicate that with the rest of the team, figure that out. And when you're even creating this crew list, they're often the ones reaching out, putting out ISOs in search ofs, and communicating with those people about communicating with potential crew members about, times, dates, rates, bars.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Why is this different for you now? What does it do for you mentally?
Yeah, so for me, and I'm sure you're the same, these are all very minute detail type stuff that takes a lot of brain power and energy and real estate to think about constantly. When you're thinking about times, when you're thinking about gear lists, just trying to make all the connections, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And then, like you're saying, you end up on set, that was in your brain the whole time. Now you don't know how you want this actor to deliver a line. Now you don't know how you want this lighting to be hitting. You don't know what to tell the DP. You have to think about all that stuff on the spot. Your production, it's going to crumble if you didn't think about all this beforehand. So being able to take that entire left brain side and give it to someone else, let them deal with it, because it's a lot.
Especially someone that enjoys it.
Exactly. It's someone who's good at it, someone who's good at communicating with all the crew. Once they got that on lock, then you're left to communicating with your DP and your department heads about exactly what you want. And you're left with a lot of time to figure that out. Because if you don't spend time to figure out exactly what you want, how are these people going to know what you want? They're going to end up guessing as well. And then things slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
And then after that, I knew that was like crucial in helping us get to the next steps, all that stuff. The next people we started getting was the gaffer. Because even before this production got to the scale, we knew that we wanted someone who was going to help us out with the lighting. It's a big lift figuring that out and also doing camera at the same time for a DP. So just having someone who's talented, who knows the language and has the skills to execute on the day of, that's really great. And there was someone that I wanted to work with for a while now, and I was trying to find opportunities where it would make sense.
Yep.
And it finally lined up. This full spec ad, it's in our creative control. He actually did BTS for us for Foot Locker. Another nice. Jason.
Nice.
I think he might be listening right now, so shout out Jason.
Let's go, Jason.
But yeah, I knew I wanted to work with him for a long time. I've seen the DP work that he does as well. It all looks beautiful, all looks fantastic. So I just took this opportunity to do spec, to work with some new people as well, because I haven't actually worked with him on production before.
Yeah, great. Anyone else you're bringing on?
Besides that, we needed to just fill out a bunch of different key roles. We needed art, we needed just general PAs, and we needed sound recordist as well, which, by the way, still have not filled. It's really hard to find good sound people. So if you have any of those, make sure you treat them well, have them on lock.
Very important people.
Yeah. But it's one of those moments where social media is fantastic. Having a strong network and wide network as well. obviously my producer is there, and then Chad, another producer at Tenfold. Just put out like an Instagram story, an ISO, just list out what you want, put out all the details, tag them in it, they post on their stories. And then, you know, either friends or random people, they just start reaching out to you, talk to them, discuss what's going on. And you can slowly start filling out the crew roll. It is very surprising. I know you always talk about this in the CPM cohort, but it is very surprising to see how many people are just willing to help out just to help out. They like, obviously it's nice to pay people, and I wish I could as well, but sometimes you can't. But just the sheer experience of doing it and then building connections with people so that in the future you can work with them and actually get them paid. It's surprising the power of just doing something can get other people on board.
Hey everybody, just taking a quick break here. If you've ever wondered what we actually used, the exact assets that we created over the years of battle testing things live on set or in pre-production, we've created treatments, LUTs, things that we've actually used on a lot of our productions that speed up our entire timeline and save us hassle on the back end. So that's why we created Set Memory. If you're interested in checking it out, the link is in the description below. Let's get back to it. There's a lot of points here that I want to just sit here for a second, because these are common false beliefs that people have that hold them back from growing in this space. When you're a solo videographer, as you like, you guys weren't even videographers because you guys went to film school. You kind of had this kind of basis to understand, oh, film is created in a circular collaborative space. Yeah. When you're coming into this area, and this is for the new aspiring cinematographers or directors out there, your network is your entire net worth. There's no one out there that can do what Hwanjoe's doing solo, because that's just so much work. And I'm sure you've tried something like this before. Like, I want to do commercial. And then you go out there and it's a 15-hour day. The client now hates you because you're like, what is going on? This person hasn't figured this stuff out. You haven't gone through the proper steps and everything. And sometimes it's in steps. So you, first of all, don't have the network. And the issue here is that you just haven't talked to other people. You haven't reached out. Like, Hwanjoe has a network of people through, Kate and Charlie and people he's already worked with. So that circle spreads over and over. But if you're not even locked in on the local network that you could potentially, connect with, it becomes a much more difficult game to ever reach out to people. Yeah. And then you can't even reach out to people if you're constantly scared as well. And these are like, it kind of feeds into each other. You don't have a network, so you haven't actually talked to people to get comfortable and build that rapport. So then when you do need to call up on someone, they're like, yeah, I'm down, right? Like, we've talked about this already. Yeah. And oftentimes when you talk to new people, this is just like a pro tip. I like to figure out what their goals are, right? Jason, and you're bringing him on to his production, and he lights really well. He's probably a DP, and that's probably where he's trying to go as well. Yeah. But those two skills are kind of leveling up skills, right? Oftentimes people start as a gaffer, move on to becoming a DP, or vice versa. And if he's coming on this project as a gaffer, there's a potential of him coming on in a future job as a DP too, depending on how things play out, or depending on how the projects kind of come in the future. But right now, there is no problem with starting a relationship at a different place. Like, when I first started working with Zach, he was a gaffer for us. And then he evolved and learned skills, and it kind of leveled him up to a place where he just shoots everything now. And he is just like a solid standalone DP, regardless of Tenfold, right? And so there's this world that we're always trying to build each other up, but you can't do that if no one's talking to you, or if you're not talking to anyone. And you're never going to become, and this is the hardest truth and painful part to hear, you're never going to get to any of our levels if you're doing this solo. Yeah. You just get fried so fast, you burn out, and then you're done. And then you realize, and you're like looking around being like, how come I can't get there? Well, that's all to say, and it leads to the biggest point here. Just today, tomorrow, this weekend, whatever it is, whenever you're listening to this, message 5 people around you that might have the same interests, or specifically in your level right now, right? Whether you're a videographer, aspiring cinematographer, find those people that are trying to build as well. And a lot of people get shot down once and they think it's over. Like, that's it. I'm only going to try once to get to meet someone. And because they think that experience didn't go well, that everyone else in the world has that same feeling or intentions or whatever. I chased Justin for like 5 months to get him to talk to me. And then once we started talking, we're like, oh yeah, this works. Like we're very similar people, like your humor, all this stuff. It's like we mesh, it works. And it took a lot of also working and talking to other people to realize, oh, okay, maybe we're not so similar here. And that's okay. This is the game. It's almost like if you're dating, you need to like go for numbers. The first person you meet ever is not going to be, that's the person. I talked to them one time, we shook hands, I'm going to marry that person. Like it's crazy. Like relationships and who you meet is all the same things, right? You have to like flesh it out, try a million different people, and then realize, oh, from these 200 people I've met, there's 10 amazing people. And that's okay. Like that ratio could be completely real, but those 10 people are going to change your life. But if you've only hit up 100, you've only maybe met one or two of those people so far.
Yeah.
And so it is a numbers game. Go out there this weekend, whoever it is, and start DMing people. It's that easy. People are real. DM them, say what's up, love your work. Like, I would love to jump on a Zoom call or meet for coffee or whatever. And like, that's how you just kind of snowball this.
Yeah. Even all the people I work with, Charlie being the biggest example. I met Charlie in school. We were working at our school's equipment rental distribution center together. Nice. And we didn't even do work until this recap video that we worked on together. And he wasn't even supposed to be on it. It was me and my friends who were just going to shoot it. And I was at the rental house and I was like, yo, Charlie, you like shooting, right? You should come hop on. And then through that relationship, we were already friends. And there wasn't a big ask either. Yeah. We're just like, well, I'll just shoot and then we'll make something cool later. And then in that relationship, I learned so much about how Charlie works, about how much of a great cinematographer he already is. And that relationship went from friendship to like, let's do some more work together. Let's see where we can go with this. And eventually we started our production company together and built something together.
Now you see him every day.
Yeah, now I have to see him every day.
Yeah. It's a full circle world.
Yeah, and then all the other people I work with, Kate, even Jason, all of these guys, they're people I met through school or just mutuals of friends. Whenever I network with people, I don't do it with the intention of working with them in the future. I do it with the intention of becoming friends with someone, and then maybe we'll work together in the future.
Yeah.
That's the biggest caveat, because you also don't want to work with people you don't mesh well with on set.
Yeah. It's actually energy first.
Yeah.
And then the work second.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes how it goes. Like energy on set is going to be huge. So like you obviously trust the people you bring in on set more or less. And if you are testing with new people, this is the perfect time because the pressure is a little bit lower. And if you don't like them, you don't have to do as much right now. Like, we got this, right? So, it's just part of the game of learning how to work with people as well. That's going to be the biggest part of all this. But so after you've locked in with the people, what is the next step for you?
Yeah, so now it's just finalizing, locking in.
Logistics, little things.
Yeah, making sure all the gear is acquired and just prepping for the shoot date, actually.
Great.
So at this point in this podcast, I actually want to flip it back to you. I want to start asking you some questions. So in the days leading up to a shoot, how do you prepare for that? What are your check boxes that you hit?
Yeah. A big one that people don't do, but I've seen this from other productions and we do this as well, is like all hands on meeting. So maybe 2 days before. So on a Saturday, if you're shooting on Monday, is, hey, can we just get an hour with everyone? And oftentimes you could do this through tech scouts as well.
Yeah.
If you have time, right? Like there's actually like a full 9-step system that we follow, which we teach in like the Preproduction Playbook, that if you follow this, you're pretty good. And you can sometimes skip certain moments for smaller pieces and smaller projects, but we typically don't recommend that regardless, because there's things that surprise you and sneak up on you that if you don't do in the pre-production, you're just going to notice on set and be like, oh, I could have caught that, And so what you can do instead of a tech scout right now, because it's coming up so quickly and it's a trickier weekend with the holidays, is doing an all hands meeting, which is you walking through the entire key crew. So everyone, in terms of like your gaffer, if you have a grip or key grip, whatever, your first aid, everyone that needs to know is on this call and meeting, and you just say, thank you for being here. And you walk through your entire shot list with the timing so everyone can actually have a chance to ask questions, final details, because typically in productions, when you're leading up to a commercial shoot, everyone's in their own siloed world for a moment, because Charlie needs to focus on the DP work, figuring out the lighting plan, all these things. You don't really care about that, because if you were also in that meeting every single time, you need to focus on other things.
Yeah.
And so, your first AD might be doing something different, which is like scheduling the schedule out. Your producer's doing something different. So everyone for a moment and leading up to a shoot is so chaotic. So you need to just regroup everyone, come back and be like, what are we talking about now?
Yeah. What does this actually look
What does
like
it actually
now that
look
we've
like?
all done?
And let's walk through it step by step. And between each moment, so you go through art, all these things. Do you have any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the last time to give yourself that kind of openness. Typically, when we do tech scouts, we like to do it 2-3 days beforehand too, and we try to avoid weekends.
Yeah.
Because
Why is that?
if you do a shoot if the shoot's for the weekend, that's different, right? If you're planning to shoot on Saturday, then you would do your tech scout on like a Wednesday or a Thursday, because you need all that prep time in the front end.
Yeah.
And then you need to leave a little gap there. And so we don't like to do stuff like, for example, if our shoot was on Monday, which we already hate, if you're doing your all hands on call on the Saturday, and then say your tech scout was also on a Saturday, everything's closed.
Yeah.
And things are like, people already have plans, and oftentimes you're working into people's schedules, and it's like all these things that you have to keep in mind. And so you sometimes can't get rentals on the weekends. You can't get prop houses if you're trying to lock that stuff in. And you just need a little bit more buffer, so you're not stressed over the weekend being like, I can't get that, I have no solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually backing yourself into a corner, which is why we always like to give ourselves more buffer room before a shoot.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that, because if you needed like a scrim or even like the
Especially
smallest
it's a
thing,
holiday right now, so it's Friday and the Monday's off, like no one's open.
all these
They're gone.
We're shooting this on the Friday, Good Friday. All the rental houses are closed. We have to
We're
do
shooting
lens
this
pickups.
podcast on the first
Yeah.
Friday.
We're shooting this episode right now, and we had to pick up the lens yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On the Thursday.
Yeah, and you get to return it afterwards, but they're gone. Everyone's left, and if you really needed stuff, you would actually have to go buy it somewhere, which if you don't have the funds for, especially if it's like a lower budget thing, like if you needed to buy that lens, if you don't have a network, then you're really screwed.
You're cooked. You have no
Yeah,
other
you're
options.
cooked. You're like, I needed that long lens for this shot, or I needed this ultra wide lens. No options, right? Sometimes when you do have the network, you can finesse your way through it, but you don't want to always rely on the last minute stuff, because they will just bite you. And ultimately you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So you just mad about yourself, right? What other questions are going through your head right now?
What do you typically do the day before to prep?
I just relax. And I try to relax. And the ultimate goal of pre-production is that you can actually relax the day before, because all that should be happening is, okay, around like 5 or 6, a call sheet's probably going to go out, and that's not even on you, because you have a producer, and you're just going to look it over, make sure you know where everything is going, like it's all aligned. A little bit different when you're the one running the production, because now you have to like think a little bit extra. If you're just a pure director, you're just thinking about the story.
Yeah.
Right? Do I have everything aligned when I get there? And we'll get to that too. How do I actually think about this? Like, where do I start? How do I stay fresh? How do I maximize what I need to do and not think about every little piece? In the beginning, when we were doing productions on a smaller scale, I'm the one lugging in sandbags and all these things. And then by the time we start shooting, I'm fried. I just felt like I did a workout, which is why it's always nice to have extra hands on set.
Yeah.
People that just want experience. And like you brought a good point earlier, where you were kind of surprised about how people were just like, yeah, I'm down.
I'm like, I don't even know if I need you to do anything, but
Yeah. But in most cases and scenarios, this is just good experience. Like you said it perfectly, where the person you might be bringing on right now, depending on the energy that they bring and how much fire and passion they kind of want to bring, like you can tell the people that you want to continue working with very quickly.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have more experienced people, they might only give you 50%, but actually they might be really good. But it's really down to how your energies mesh. And sometimes it is just that easy to put out a question, because you don't want to infer your internal feelings onto other people and think that, for example, I don't think that person is going to want to do this, but it's not up to you.
Yeah.
That person might be craving this moment. Like, I've wanted to work with Hwanjoe on these projects for so long, and you're building this kind of bubble around you. And we used to do this all the time. And it just bites us because, oh man, we could have had this amazing person on set. It would have made things so much smoother. And this is why we do this stuff beforehand, these conversations, because you don't want the post-mortem to sit down and debrief afterwards being like, we just needed 2 more people. And we were the ones that stopped us from getting more people. And that used to be us all the time. Because I was either too prideful or fearful or scared or whatever it is to ask these people. And it's not up to me. So this is why we like to do in search ofs, because you start to see people be like, yo, whatever it is, I'm down.
Yeah. And even in the future, now you have like a whole repertoire of people you can hit up before you put that.
Yeah.
ISO
We call this
up.
the Rolodex, right? This is your back pocket. You have these people that are slotted in for different levels of production, or, hey, I would love to test with this person next time. Didn't have an opportunity this time because we already had that role slotted. But that's why it's also important on the other side to be shooting your shot all the time, to be on set, to show up for people. And if you're new to someone's set, you're not there to have fun. And this is kind of a big point for a lot of people. They think because it's a spec project, I don't care.
Yeah.
We're just here to vibe, right? Like I'm getting lunch and stuff. You have spent so much time and energy with Charlie. I've seen it, like working on this, dialing it in, doing the previs, all these little things. And if someone comes in with an energy of like, this isn't important. This is important for you. This can change your entire life depending on how this project goes.
Yeah.
Any project can. That's why you need to care about the project. And you need to also set these expectations for people. And when you do these all hands calls and whatever it is, there's you kind of have to put out this aura of like, this is important. This is a schedule. Show people how much time you've put into this. This is where everyone's going to go. Like when we get in there, there's all these little details that you get through repetition. But yes, it's also a matter of how you set the foundation, so people know we're not just messing around. Like this is time and energy, which I think is way more important than how much money it is right now.
Yeah.
Because this job can elevate you to a place where you can go from $0 to a $15,000 project next, and suddenly you can now pay everyone out their full rates, as well as like continuing to build that relationship up. So that first impression is everything, and this goes for both sides. Hwanjoe's obviously going to try to bring his A game, but if you're new to someone's set, like bring your A game. You just never know, and you never want to burn bridges, right? Because Hwanjoe can blow up and start doing $1 million projects and working on stuff consistently over and over. And because you were there from day one helping him out, you're obviously going to be the person that he pulls up as well. So it goes both ways. Do you have any other thoughts in terms of what's kind of on your mind, stressing you out right now?
I don't know. That's pretty much it. I feel really, really confident in the pre-production we've done so far and the whole concept. Me and Charlie have been so dialed into this for the last few days that on that regard, fully confident. Yeah, all the questions I've asked you pretty much. It's like those little minute things, like the rituals directors have to calm their nerves. Because I'm not nervous, but obviously it is very...
Yeah, once you guys said you're locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
We'll do a little quick fire round here.
Sure.
So I think some of the things that is really helpful, especially when you're first starting out, knowing that this is a technical spec, putting a lot of energy to this, obviously. Showing up on set early. Gives you time to settle your nerves. And again, same thing. I'm not really nervous when I walk on set because we've already done the work. We know what's up. But just being there when, early crew starts to show up, like producers, if they're putting up signs and stuff like that, I like to just be there early when they show up, because now you get to just sit there and do nothing. And get ahead on your actual shot list and look at your shots, because I know your shot list right now too. It's like, it says 1A.
Yeah.
And you, as a director, need to know what that 1A is. And so you have obviously a separate sheet or form, trying to have that visible for everyone. So especially if you're doing this much more shot by shot, having that stuff printed out, having it printed out large. This is the number one thing too. We used to just print out an entire shot list, and it was like a 8x11 thing for 40 shots, 20 shots, or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, this is for ants. You're like, I can't see anything. And so being able to individually cut out shots and have a reference, you've seen it many times before. You also didn't previs this in studio, in the location. And so that's obviously a step that we always recommend doing, because the focal lengths in the studio where you shot this is very different from the focal lengths that you see in space. And which is why you always want to we try to anyways. Like your previs was perfect that you did here, but we always like to do a location scout and a tech scout afterwards, so we know exactly, oh, camera's sitting right here. Like there's almost no question about it.
It's also time of day, like trying to do that stuff at the exact time of day that you're planning on shooting.
Exactly.
The
Do your
one
location scouts.
the one thing I am actually stressed out about is because we have it's a beautiful barbershop, huge windows facing east. So we know overcast day, hopefully it sticks.
Yeah.
We know that when we shoot, the sun will be
Dipping and moving.
it'll be blasting into the
Yeah.
store. So that's our key.
Yeah.
We don't really have any other choice. We have no idea how that's actually going to pan out. And we're not 100% sure what that's exactly going to look like either. If we were able to do that tech scout and that previs on location on the exact time of, then we know exactly what the lighting conditions are.
Yeah. So if you haven't Sunseekered this, which is like a phone app that shows you where the sun is at each moment of the day, that's what we always like to do on location scouts. So if I was going to call something out, it'd probably be that. And going with both you and your DP. So you guys you're going in there with caterage, looking at your focal lengths. You know exactly where you want to put the cameras, because even a flipped choice, for example, you have say a 40 mil on 1A right now. A 40 mil on 1A right now means nothing. Because once you get there, you put it on the camera, you're like, whoa, why did we choose a 40 mil? This should be a 25. This should be, right? So there's those kind of minute differences of putting in the extra steps of going through the 9 steps, because there's like everything levels up into each other. Like you kind of needed this earlier information to have better response on like when you're going on to set. And now you know what you're looking for. And so that's something that if you don't know that stuff, I would always turn that into like closer to like an 8-hour day instead, because a 6 means that you only have 4 hours to shoot, and 4 hours to shoot means you are pretty tight, especially if you want extra options. And because it's a friend, you could probably extend if you needed to, no problem. But those are some big ones, right? So you're saying the sun can move and dip over, and if it's overcast, it's kind of perfect because you just get like a more even sunlight. But do you have a backup plan for this?
Yeah. Well, we have the lights. We're bringing lights, but
and I know the space too, because like right outside is the sidewalk, and then it's a street.
Yeah.
So you don't have as many options to back that because it's just quite tight.
Yeah, it's really contingent on whether or not the sun wants to be nice to us. But we do have small backup plans. We're bringing in big lights. Nice. I think we're bringing in the 1000C that you guys are letting us borrow. So we could potentially blast it in, but on like the super wide shot, like the master wide, that the opening shot that we're gonna have.
Yeah.
If the sun doesn't cooperate, then it is what it is. You know what I mean?
That's the big one that always takes the most time, is setting up your wide first. So if that's your first, is that your first shot?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Definitely set up for that one.
Yeah.
Because even if you need to take away the 1000C afterwards, that's totally fine. And then you can just work with smaller lights as you go a little bit tighter and more mediums. But yeah, this is a perfect example why we location scout. So then you know these problems ahead of time. So if you don't know your shots intimately, because you haven't like visually seen, like your previs, it could be very different from what that is. And you're trying to just match it up. Give yourself that extra hour, because even getting your first shot up is typically the hardest, because it just takes longer. Everything needs to be dialed. Oftentimes people don't even know what the process is of once you get on set. Like, what do you do first? Like some people just start putting up lights.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, if you don't have your frame up, like what are you lighting against? Right? Don't shoot everything, right? don't you don't have to fix up the whole space if it's not being in a frame at any point. So it is just minimizing and knowing as much as you can, which is all to say pre-production is everything. Because you have every question answered, and every time you have one thing missing, it just snowballs into like 10 other things. And so, like even the art, for example, the art itself can take an hour to go.
Yeah.
And it can take you an hour to walk in and set up all your lights and everything. But you typically do your art first and then your lighting after. And your art team needs to have a monitor so they can see what they're lighting against. You don't want them to be walking over and being like, "What's this look like?" And then walking back. Like it's about efficiencies here, to make sure that you get up your first shot the fastest, and then having other things built out, knowing what your next shots are. So how do you start to plan into your second shot, your third shot? So maybe like instead of Hollywooding your lights because it's a smaller space, have a roller that's ready to this on standby. It is always just thinking about those 2-3 steps ahead. Yeah. But yeah, I think you guys are going to do great.
Thank
The
you.
previs look great. And we're super excited to see what this looks like afterwards. And we're going to be doing this again right after the shoot, probably on Monday or Tuesday. And then seeing where it went wrong, where it went right, and then kind of see how we move this into the post-production process. Because I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. How do you bring it all the way to the end and make sure that it comes out better or worse than you thought?
Yeah.
But we'll go step by step here. We hope you enjoyed this one. We're going to start doing more interactive stuff like this because we're always doing new projects, always dealing with new problems and issues because filmmaking isn't a super simple process all the time. There is a system for it, and you can't always do the system. But let's see how this goes because Hwanjoe's a great director. I think he's got a good vision for this, and we're just going to see how it kind of evolves. And if you have any questions about what we're doing, how this works, if you ever want to learn more about this stuff, we're an open book. Check out both of our channels, Tenfold Production, as well as this channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe because the follows and the likes, everything it does for this channel helps boost this to more filmmakers out there that might actually enjoy this stuff or they want to learn more about us. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you in the next series.
Peace.
See ya.